Hello everybody, I'm Grandmaster Ivan Šarić from Croatia, and today I will play some Banter Blitz with Chess24 Premium users. So let's get started. Okay, I'm white. I played e4, my best choice. This looks like a Pirc or modern defense. I try to be aggressive. E5 move preventing knight f6, c5, this is all seen. Black takes on d4, I'll take the pawn on d6. Well, I think I have good chances to obtain some advantage here, but I'm not sure now. Actually, d3 is always a threat. Yeah, it looks like black is fine here. Trying to open my rook. Knight f5. Still knight e3 is not a threat because knight on d7 is hanging. But I need to make some useful move. The best way to change these rooks. Yeah, position is around equal, but I think I would prefer black here. Somehow it feels like black has some initiative.
What's going on?
It's easier to play when I'm not talking, but
Try.
I'm already facing some problems. I'm finding a way to escape in a draw. Okay, h3. This king needs a little air. My opponent wants to play rook c8. Yeah. Still, I should defend this position somehow. To prevent some queen c4 later. Play knight e4, but probably my opponent will take this knight, and later I'm hoping to play c3 to open up my bishop a little bit. Yeah, c3 is my next move probably. Okay. Now actually bishop f4 and then bishop e5. Maybe I'm already taking over. And this move I didn't see. But still. Queen d4. Actually, black has some problems with his king. But my king is also not better. Not any better. Well, the problem is after queen d4, bishop d4, rook c2, I cannot play rook e8. I think he should take on, he should have taken on c2 because after now I made a mouse slip. Yeah, this was over. Just unfortunately, I had to resign. Yeah.
Warm-up game. That was a
Yes.
warm-up game.
I need to improve my play with mouse. So now I'm gonna choose a slightly weaker opponent. Again, I'm white, but this time I'm hoping to win and without unnecessary mistakes. Still waiting for response. Okay, Aliyah in defense. This is what I usually like in normal games, but in Blitz it can be tricky. Maybe it's time for some non-standard moves like h4 or knight g5 here. This is actually all theory, but I must say I don't really remember. Taking on e5 and then c5, usually how black play here. This really isn't a good move. Knight is not doing anything particularly good here. I'm not sure how good this is for black, but I'll try to prepare my attack on the king side, bringing back knight to f3 and then bishop e3 and later g4. Yeah, I blundered now exchange with knight e3. Hopefully my opponent didn't see this. Yeah, now it's a good time for g4. Because pawn c5 will be lost after knight h4, queen h4. And knight h6 is not really a good move. take this knight later, and now I'm trying to exchange queens to enter into winning endgame. But bishop c4 was also strong, and then knight e4 with bishop e3. Here white should somehow win this game. Now bishop will come to d4. Also, black will have his strong bishop on c6, but still I'm pawn up. And later I'll probably play f5. Yeah, or win on time actually, which is very strange. I didn't expect to have better time in this Banter Blitz, but it seems I'm playing fast at the moment. Well, now every move is winning. Yeah, first victory. Okay, here we are back, and okay, I'm white again. I was hoping to get some games with black, but it looks like I need to strengthen my repertoire with white. Wow, this is the most solid line, and I really don't like playing against Berlin. But in Blitz, it's okay, I guess. I'm not sure why is my opponent thinking here. Well, let's make it fun. Knight b5, a4, this is a normal line. No, knight d4 is or d6, but knight d4 is considered to be best for black. And later taken d5. And usually black here has a very good position. This is new for me, probably because of knight f5, and now pawn on g7 is hanging. And if castling, then bishop h6 is actually a nice move. And black cannot take on h6 because of queen g4. And after queen g5, knight h6 wins the queen. And g6 just drops an exchange, and if anything else, I'm just winning a pawn on g7. Yeah, actually, here I'm already close to winning. The castling is not a very good move. Probably knight e5 or g6 is probably the best move for black. Now to decide with bishop, and rook e8 is losing in view of bishop a5 and queen g4 and mate on g7, and again giving up exchange is the best move. Knight g6, and white should be winning there. This is not bad actually, but probably it's not changing anything. This is bishop e5, queen f5. I was hoping to get my rook into play over a3, but since the bishop is on c5, that's not possible. Now knight goes back and I'm threatening f4, and I'm exchange up, and now a rook up. Yeah, this was a blunder. I think he should have played queen g6 or go somewhere back with the knight. Now this is already too much material. I try to play some normal moves. This wins even faster, I think. No, it's completely over. Yes, my opponent resigned. Okay, now I'm hoping to get some game with black pieces. Yes. b3, well, I was not hoping to play like this, but okay. It's not a bad line, it's been played by Badur Jabbar many times very successfully. This should be one of the best setups for black. Although knight e2 is not very common move, usually white people play bishop b5 and well, I'm happy to exchange the light squared bishop here. And now this knight on g3 is attacked. I think he should go knight f1. And I'm really considering castling long, but it seems a little bit dangerous if he starts to push his pawns with c4, b4. Probably I should first move my knight from c6 to g6 to create some pressure, or h4. Well, now I'm gonna take this pawn and attack. Now if king f2 is very dangerous because bishop e2 and knight g4. Well, here I'm winning the pawn already. Probably he should try something with knight c3 and king d2, or just go somewhere with this king. No, I'm not sure even to take on e2 or to play knight e7 and knight f5, because I think I have enough time for do all this. So yeah, I'm not in the hurry to take pawn on g3. Yeah, maybe I should have taken this pawn before. Still black is better here. The pawn structure from white side is just terrible. This bishop on b2 is doing nothing and he has no perspective. Still my opponent is fighting. It will not be easy for me to convert this advantage. I think there should be some easier ways to win this game besides castling long, but I don't know, it seems that I should be faster here than my opponent on queen side. We'll see. Just trying to open many files as possible. Unfortunately, if white takes, I cannot play h4 because my knight on g4 is hanging. So probably rook g8 or queen g6. I would expect b5 or a4. This looks like a normal move. Since rook h5 is not really possible, this exchange sacrifice, because after taking and queen g4 I just take pawn on g5 and later on g3. So white must try something on the queen side, otherwise he'll probably get mated. Yeah, he wants to play b6, but after that I can just play a6 or even take, which is probably the simplest decision. I don't want to spoil my pawn structure, because if I take with a pawn then a4, a5, and he could get some counter chances by opening the a file. Now I'll just move my king to b8 and well, later I don't even have to attack anymore because I have material advantage. And now I can play knight d4, but he can play queen b2 and I'm pinned because my rook on h8 is hanging. Yeah, unfortunately this tactics doesn't work. If I take on e3 then some bishop c5 can be annoying. Well, I'm gonna open h file and g file also. And later try to move this queen back to the king side. I have still no threats because my rook is pinned on h8. White can play rook c1 or bishop c5, but anyway, my idea is to bring queen back on the king side. Well, this was a huge blunder. Actually, I have f6. Luck. I didn't see this move, but now this bishop may hang on e7. I have some tempos with queen e6 or queen c7, and I'm trying to find a mate somehow. I'm not sure to move my rook and queen on the h file, but this looks very slow, or probably I should just open the g file somehow by sacrificing knight. Maybe it's time for defense now, because queen c2 can be dangerous, or some other moves. Queen d8 is too passive. Queen c7 is losing a queen after bishop a7. But queen b3 looks good. And pawn on e3 is hanging. And well, after exchange of queens, I'm completely winning. I think it was just important not to play knight e3 immediately because of bishop d6. But now the game is just over. Here many moves are winning. Probably I should bring my king first. Well, rook f5, knight e3, and the rook is falling. Okay, another victory.
Scroll down if you can.
Ah, okay. Next game. Okay, Sicilian. I'll go with bishop b5 because the other lines usually lead to very theoretical play. Yeah, this is a normal move. White wants to play on development or on pawn structure, depends what black plays. Black has a bishop pair and white has a pawn center, so position is in general balanced. I want to prevent bishop g4 because later taking on e5 could be very annoying. Knight f7. I would like that black takes on e5, which he probably won't because it's not a good option for him. Now I can play rook c1, queen d2, knight a4. This is a typical play, and if black does not sacrifice some pawn with c5 or whatsoever. Yes, this king h8 is a little bit strange move for me. Maybe he wants g5 and g4. I didn't understand it. Now knight a4, knight c5. If black does not make some move here fast, I think he can be in some serious trouble. Yes, this was expected, g5, and I was thinking that he would play maybe h5. Now knight h4. Nice. Look interesting. Probably he must play bishop c8 or bishop h6, bishop f4. Yeah, white idea is in general to swap this bishop, so now white is much better and I'm winning pawn probably by force. e6 or maybe first take on f6 and then take on g4. If I take on g4, he takes on e5 and then my knight is hanging. But still I can play queen h2, after which he cannot take on g4 because of knight g6. Yeah, I'm gonna go with this move. Also knight f5 was very good option, I think. White was just winning there. But I wanted to win exchange. Bishop d3 is possible, but after rook e3 probably it's not changing anything, because if he takes on d4 I take on d3 and then later knight g6. Just not sure which move is more precise, rook e3 or rook d1. As this pawn will come to b2, that's a little bit unpleasant. Rook d1, because okay, now it's exchange. Now I need to transfer my knight to the king side. Knight f4 attacking the bishop on d3. Well, even after exchange of queens, white is winning, but this should be faster. This is enough for... Oh, I almost played rook e6 and blundered the whole rook. I'm not only exchange up, I'm even pawn up, and my pawn structure is much better, so this position is very hard to win. again white. Now I will try to play reverse king Indian because it was enough with e4 move. This move is just, it's not making any too much difference with move knight f3. Sometimes it just, I'm just trying to confuse my opponents with g3, but anyway, I will play knight f3 and bishop g2. If my opponent responds in the meantime. Okay. I can put knight on f3, but this time I will go knight a2 and h3 later with some plans g4 and trying to attack on the king side if possible. Oh, f3 looks interesting. Well, this really is not a threat, bishop h3, so I'm not sure to play g4 or to let my opponent go with this move. Well, I'm gonna develop my pieces. Now this queen will go back and later I can play h4. I wanted to castle long, but e5. And after taking knight takes a5 and black is attacking the c4 pawn. So maybe knight f4 was not a good move after all. Knight d3. On e5 now I can take d takes e5 and I will have some pressure on d file, I think. Where will this knight go? Knight a5 looks strange, because this knight can be attacked later, but maybe he may. Actually b5 was better move. I can play knight a4, queen c7. It's probably okay for him. I can play e5 also, which looks tempting, and the problem is I must choose one move. Okay, I will castle because it looks more natural than all other moves. Okay, b5, that was kind of expected. Now e5. And I want to play knight e4, but he can play b takes c4 later and my knight will be hanging on d3. I don't do anything, so probably I should take on b5 and then play knight e4 or some other move. Now he can play c4 and probably he wins a pawn on e5. Yeah. I'm wondering if I can do something smart here to sacrifice some piece or a pawn, but I don't see any moves. If e6 he just takes. Probably knight b4 and then bishop d4. Also the problem is that pawn on b3 is hanging, and it looks like I will lose more than just one pawn, and after taking on b3 he can also play later knight c4. This isn't a really nice position for white. just want to move this bishop from e3 because after knight c4 he can take this bishop, and also from d4 I'm kind of preparing if black takes on e5. Now where to go with this, queen c3 or f2? Well, I must take this pawn, and if I'm not losing more material. Knight c3, rook c8. I move knight c6 or rook c1, but here black is probably winning. So queen a7, some check first, and then queen e3. Looks nice. Yeah, my opponent wants knight c6 and take on c3 and then take on d5. I will try somehow to unpin, probably with queen b3, and next move rook d1 or rook c1. Well, this was probably not a strategically good decision for black, because after change on d5 this pawn on d6 may become weak, and especially now I will have strong knight on d5. But the problem is this tactics work for black. Rook f2, bishop d4, and if I go somewhere else then queen a2. But I can take on b5, still with some chances to escape. And later f4, and just the problem is my second rank is very weak, and rook b2 is the next move, and pawn on h2 can be defended from the h4, but I don't really see how to do this except for this move and queen d5. Now if black doesn't take on d5, then knight c6, and I will take on e5 and probably make a draw. And if black takes on d5, still rook d5, or with the idea of knight c6 or f4. Somehow I should draw this position, bishop f6 and knight c6, and I don't see how can black defend the d6 pawn, because after rook a6, rook takes d6, attacking the bishop on f6, and later I will defend my rook on d6 and move knight. Well, I didn't see this move, this one. This is a strong move. Probably I must play rook e1, and I need to play a little bit faster because I have 30 seconds left. And try to get this knight to d5 somehow and to hold this position. If I could get my king to f3, that would be very nice. But now rook d2. Yeah, I wanted to play king f3, but it's not making too much sense. This is not a very good move. Well, I should hold this rook in the game. h3 was much better. I'm gonna offer draw. Well, my opponent is correct, so he accepted it, although he could just beat me on time. So again, 5-minute game. Again, I'm white. Last game was quite lucky for me because objectively I should lose that game. So I'm gonna try with g3, but this time I'm hoping to get more successful than last time. Again, it seems like my opponents are spending more time after g3 than after e4, and it usually takes them about 10-15 seconds, and if it gets longer I should probably abort the game. Yeah. Okay, I'm not black. Still waiting for the first move of my opponent. I hope that it's not just a b3 or g3 or something like that, to play some main lines. Okay, c4, e5, g3, knight f6. This is a normal English line. I should play c6. I want to play d5 immediately, and usually white plays d4 or knight f3. This opening is popular now for both sides, I think, and I will play like similar to Ragozin style, bishop b4 and then knight d7, trying to defend the d5 pawn with some active play. Now I must give my bishop and play h6 or castle first. I'm not sure what to do. Probably it makes a very little difference. Now this move is preventing white from castling, and if he takes on b7, then rook b8 and pawn on b2 is hanging. So one possible move is, for example, even h3 and take with king on e2, but probably my opponent didn't like this. Now rook c8 is interesting also. Check, queen a5. Queen a5 I like, because queen c3 I take pawn on a2. This is somehow, it should be good for black. Again, taking on b7 is never an option because of rook b8, and after queen e7, rook b2 and queen c2, queen c3. This is what I expected. Now rook c7. I want to double my rooks on c file. White will probably play h3 and then bishop e6. The position is about equal. Rook c1, rook c8. He cannot play knight b5 or knight d5 because of rook c2, but h3 is normal, or even a3 with idea of queen b4. I'm not sure where to go, to e6 or d7. I'm not sure if after bishop d7 he can play knight d5. And knight d5 he cannot play this. Because this bishop is useful on this diagonal more than on e6. On e6 he's just defending this pawn and that's all, but sometimes I want to have possibility of bishop a4 and also even to play b5 and b4, or b5 queen b6 and a5. Bishop f1 is a normal move, because bishop is no longer doing anything on this square g2, and he just attacks this very solid pawn on e4. So bishop f1 and later he can, or a3. I would like to play something aggressive here, but this usually just weakens my position. Some moves like b5, and it's not a very smart idea to put my pawns on the same color as my bishop. And queen b6 I can play, but I don't want to spoil my pawn structure either. I'm wondering to play h5 or g5 just to create to gain some space on the king side. Just to see what will my opponent do next move. a6 was also possible. Probably g4, but I wanted to play move my queen to d6, but I'm hoping to get him to play knight d5, and then I'm winning a material. Also knight d5, I can play queen d6, and after knight f4, g5, again winning a piece. But now one idea is to play queen d6, defend this pawn on d5 with bishop c6, and move knight to g5, knight h7, knight g5, and later hoping to open his king with f5. And now bishop f1, I don't think it's particularly good. Now even some sacrifices on g4 are really worth of considering. Bishop g4, immediately knight b5, bishop f3. I'm afraid a little bit of knight b5 because my rook will be hanging on c7, so just to prevent this, and bishop e2 is probably here the best move. Again, I would really like to sacrifice this, but later he can play knight f4, and after I take on g4. Or maybe I should sacrifice my knight. It's really pity that the sacrifice doesn't work. I'm gonna exchange rooks and play g5 to prevent white from playing knight f4, and maybe now I have some ideas of taking on g4, but still I need to move my king to g7 because sometimes queen c8 can be annoying. This is a good move because white should not be afraid of endgame. So I should probably avoid changing queens. Now I'm threatening probably knight g4. Also I want to play bishop c6, knight d7, or bishop b5 to exchange my bad bishop. Really, now is the time. And bishop b5 next move. And I'm wondering where will this knight go. Probably he can play queen b8, and I can hope to get some repetition if possible. Now on queen c2 I have even positional compensation for the piece. Yes, queen b7, and now pawn on f7 is hanging again. I didn't want to play king g7 because of queen e5. But still on queen b7 I can play queen f3. Now white can play king g1. And after bishop e2, queen e2, queen f7. Well, this, I'm not really sure this was a good move. Because after queen e4, f5, or just king h6, and after queen c6, f6, the white king is very weak. But still I have some problems with my king also. Queen b8. I'm just wondering if I can escape from these checks. I didn't really calculate it, I just played a move. I'm hoping to have f5 move at the end if I don't get self-mated or something. Yeah, now black is winning. And just king comes to g3 or h3 or somewhere, or h3 was also possible. Yeah, this was a tough victory. Let's play one more game, I think, or
Can I do one?
yes.
I'll take a mouse. There was one who was waiting a long time.
We pause now, or we are still going?
No, we're still going. I can't find this. Let me try to search for it this way. Tell us something about you, meanwhile.
Well, I'm currently the best Croatian player. I was European and World Junior Champion under 18, and I was one of the youngest Croatian grandmasters. Recently, I beat Magnus Carlsen, the current world champion, at the Olympiad. I won the last year Tata Steel Challengers group and played this year in the Masters group, but I didn't play as I expected to. And recently, I'm not really satisfied with my play, but I'm hoping to improve it. And the next very important tournament for me is World Cup in Azerbaijan, and I'm preparing for it.
Let's see if that worked. This was a guy who challenged early on. There we go.
Yeah, he was first.
Yeah, but he was scroll off the list. Let's see if he accepts. 1 second.
I'm still waiting for my opponent.
Okay, he had put a chat in before, but now he seems to have stepped away maybe. So we'll come back to it. You wanna?
I just choose.
Yeah. Shoot.
But I cannot now.
You can choose someone else, right?
No, it just I don't have. Here is accept button, but it looks very strange.
Because we have you have a challenge pending. Okay, so we'll have to cancel your challenge. Hang on. I got it. Here, I got it last for a second.
Ah.
I think we have to just cancel this one and then we can accept the next one. Where is your challenge?
But it's in my. Can I just decline? No.
No, that's a friend. That was a friend request.
Aha! I didn't realize. Okay.
So now you've made a challenge.
But he accepted your request. Start the challenge.
Start the challenge. Okay. There
Okay.
You go. Now you're up.
I had some problems with the interface, but now it's okay. I'm not sure to play neither. For Rouser, I had really good results in both of them. Well, let's go for the theoretical lines. Bishop e3, e5. This could be a very interesting game. White wants to play f5, but I'm not really afraid of it because I will play bishop c4. And later black wants to put his knight on d7 and push his pawns b4, a5 and so on. Now a3 is a little bit dangerous for white, usually in neither, and it shouldn't be very good for white. He needs to start his attack with g4 or f5 or something. g4 probably is better. Actually g5 now was a good move. If white couldn't play queen f4 because of knight a3, and now he's threatening probably g5, and later he wants to play knight d5. So I'm wondering to play some useful move or just play by myself knight d7 and knight e5. Yeah, rook on c5 is always good. I'm giving up the d6 pawn. It was not my intention, just blunder it, but anyway, later I can play b4 and I will have a strong compensation for this pawn. Now the b file is open, which is usually a very good thing for black. I'm threatening rook b8, and then the knight on c3 is hanging already, as well as the pawn on b2. So it's not a very pleasant position for white here already. He is lagging with his attack, and black already has two open files, and he even has the option of playing a5 and open the third one. Now when I take on d5, he will get a very nice square for his knights, and this is a c6 square. And if I don't take this knight, I will just lose my piece. So probably I should take with knight and play bishop d7. Just try to cover this square, and hoping to play bishop f6, so my bishop will become more active, and g5 is preventing this bishop f6, but now rook b8. He needs to play b3 and then a5, and it's not clear how can he prevent a4. He can play here bishop c1, but then bishop g5. Or he can maybe try here rook f1, and with the idea of bishop somewhere and pawn on f7 is hanging, but I'm taking to sacrifice this pawn if it's possible. After a4, bishop will go somewhere. If it goes on d2, then knight on d4 is hanging, and if this bishop goes somewhere else, then I can play bishop e8, and later on knight c6 I can even sacrifice my rook with rook c6 and a takes b3. And my next move is a takes b3, and then later to regroup my pieces to a file and try to deliver mate on a2 or a1 square if it's possible. But my opponent will do something in the meantime. bishop d2, queen d4, queen f7, king h8, queen e7, and a3 or ab3, so bishop d2 is not a good move. Maybe this bishop can go somewhere else, like bishop e3 or bishop c1, which is more defensive move. But I can play here f6 or take on b3. After I take on b3, queen f7, king h8, he will take on b3 with his pawn, and it seems that black should be better here or close to winning, even if I'm able to calculate everything well. Just I cannot decide between f6 or a takes b3. Well, I'm gonna give this pawn. I think the time here is more important than this pawn on f7. Well, now I can play f6, or I can play bishop e8. Well, f6. Later also I can play bishop e8 and with the idea bishop g6. Yeah, and I'm gonna play it immediately, because he will have to play knight f5. And this, I didn't even consider this move. I can always take rook c6 after rook b3 or some other move. After king c1, the knight on c6 is pinned, so I have time to do anything else. Queen b3 I can even take. Now probably I should take this knight and play some move like queen e4 or queen b5 or queen b3. Queen b3, yes, this is winning immediately, because he cannot play queen d5 check, queen d5, because his rook is pinned, and at the same time I'm threatening. Now I just need to check if queen b3, f7, king f8 just, and there are no checks left, so other moves are winning as well. Bishop d3, bishop takes f6, basically every move is winning here, but this is the shortest one. After f7, king f8, black cannot play even white cannot play bishop g7 because he's pinned, he cannot move his rook, and he's completely pinned. We play one more game?
One more from the challenge list.
Okay, this is the last game. And I'm black, so at least this game will shorten the difference between my white and black pieces. This knight door seems pretty well. Okay, d4. I'm gonna choose king in the end, if possible, if my opponent allows me this. And knight f3. This looks like classical. I'm hoping just that he doesn't play d takes e5, and it's good he played d5. The Petrosian variation. Usually white players play bishop g5, so they could play later knight d2. Because now knight h5 and knight f4 is coming, and black wants to play f5. And the problem with pawn on h3 is that black can always play knight f4, and no longer white can play g3 because of this pawn on h3. And in general, h3 is not a very useful move in King Indian, because bishop g4 is not something that white should be afraid of. But I'm gonna attack this bishop, and I'm hoping that white will play bishop takes f4, because this will open up my g7 bishop and knight g1. He wants to take knight takes e2. Now I have a choice between knight takes e2 or f5 immediately, and they both looked very nice. I'm gonna go with f5, and maybe even after bishop f3 I can play g5. Just now I'm forced to take, but white has weakened his king. Now f4 or f takes e4. Later I will play bishop f5, and after e4 I will open my bishop. Just I'm checking the g4 move, which looks very dubious, and still I'm not sure whether to open up my bishop from g7 or but close my bishop on f5, or to leave this bishop on f5 active and the one on g7 still there. This bishop can be always activated. It seems that this bishop on f5 is stronger, and I want to play queen d7, and later even after c6 or b5 open up the queen side. Well, now e4 is interesting, because this changes the things a little bit. And g4 is not really a threat, so I'm gonna try open up position on the queen side. I want to take on d5 and play rook c8 with idea rook c2, which I will play anyway, but he can play rook c1. Black here is slightly better, but it's not easy to win this game. White position is very solid. And the problem is after queen d7, the g4 is always winning a piece. So, and I would really like to play queen d7 and put queen on f7 or somewhere, or even a4 is interesting with the idea of queen a5. But I'm afraid that this pawn can be lost. Anyway, his second rank is very weak, and so this queen should probably stay on e2. Probably rook takes t1 and rook takes c8 and rook c1. It's some normal move. G4, this shouldn't be right. Usually with bishop pair, when you open a position, it favors the side with bishop pair. Now I'm just wondering to take on g4 or to leave it for later, because if I take, he takes with f pawn and he wants to change one pair of rooks, and then he can play knight f3, and still this knight on g1 has no available square, so I will leave this knight on g1 for a while. And now I'm threatening queen a5, and pawn on d5 is hanging, and also I want to play bishop b5 if I don't lose my g6 pawn. And this was maybe probably a little bit too optimistic to play queen a5. Because this g6 pawn is very important. Well, this bishop will now come to f7, and this d5 pawn will hanging, and white will need to play rook d1, after which black can play rook c8. And this, now white activates finally his knight. It was about time. Now if b5, then a3. So I'm gonna play a3 immediately. White can play b4, queen c7, then bishop d2, rook c8, rook c1. It would be a good idea for black to change queens, because then his advantage would be just higher. Rook c8. He cannot play knight b5 because of queen c2. And I don't believe this is a good move, but he wants to open a g file and to have some bishop h6 motives. But now the rook on f1 is hanging, and black wants to change queens. If the queen takes e4, knight takes e4, then I can play rook c2. Bishop d5 would be a huge mistake in view of knight f6 and knight takes d5. Now, if I just take pawn on a2, I don't see what's happening. Because knight f6, I just go king f8 or king h8, and the pawn on a3 is very far. And after this, probably just bishop d5, knight f5, and this is not so clear. Bishop f3, rook g7. And also after knight f5 I have problems with knight e7, so also I have problems with time. And after knight f5 I cannot play bishop f6, so I made a huge blunder here. I'm just trying to play bishop e5. And now after king g1 to give some check on a1, and now I will exchange my rooks. This was actually a very bad move for white, because now black is queening. He should have played king g1, and after rook a1 check, king f2, and this pawn would not be queen yet. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you everybody, and I hope you enjoyed this banter blitz, and I hope I will play this once again.
Tell folks what you were doing here this week.
I was shooting a series of videos for Chess24 dedicated to the Italian line, and basically it was a repertoire for white, and this will come out in a couple of weeks, I think next 1 week or two, and I'm hoping that you will find this material interesting and that you will learn something from it. Okay.